Right, I'm Toni. Well, I was born in Bishopbriggs. Well, yeah, I was born in Bishopbriggs, so lived there my whole life. So I've been here a long time and an early years worker. I work with P5 children. So in their early years, anything from birth to 5. I'm on a supply basis, so I work in and out of different schools in an early years setting.
I'm Moira, I'm an occupational therapist. I work in the NHS in Glasgow. I work part-time as well. I work 3 days a week. I'm not sure. I think there's more I'd like to hear about what it'll mean for Scotland, what it'll mean for me, and what it'll mean for Scotland. There's different things that I need to know the answers for, and I'm hoping that they'll come over the next year and it will be clearer for me.
Unsure, definitely. I wouldn't know what to do if the vote was tomorrow. I think there needs to be a huge change, and this could be it, but I'm not clear enough on whether this, because that would be it would be a big change, which I think is needed, but whether that would take us in the right direction, I'm not sure. I think altogether there's not enough information. I think everything's woolly. So I think you hear something in the press or you hear something on the news and it's woolly. What will we be in Europe? Won't we be in Europe? You know, will there have to be a referendum? Won't there? It's all woolly. What will happen to oil money? How long that will? I just think everything. There's not any definites about how. I just don't think it's clear enough. Mm-hmm. I think
there's lots of things like how the EU, will we be in the EU? There's been a whole lot of publicity about that, and I think the SNP come out and they're quite clear on yes we will be and this is why we will be, and then you hear all this, well it's not as straightforward as that, and I think that gives you some doubt for other areas as well. You know, you talk about the defence, just lots of education, lots of things that you just think, I'm just not sure that we've got enough information about that yet.
I don't know whether it's balanced or not. I just think they've a clearer argument because things are the way they've always been. And there doesn't seem to be many clear answers out there for what the changes will be. The impression I get is that the questions are there, but I don't get a lot of answers. It's up to now, if the vote, as you said, if the vote was tomorrow, I've not had any clear answers from the press, really.
For me, part of it is the whole financial situation. When I think how, for the whole of the UK, we seemed to be, struggling at one stage, and I think Scotland is such a small part of the UK that I think, when I look at somewhere like Ireland that was struggling as well, so I think, well, could we manage financially on our own? And I get that we have, oil money, although, as Toni said, there's, we're not clear how long that's going to last. So what do we have as a nation that can keep us, sustain us, help us to grow, that we won't go under financially? That's a huge one for me. Well, I think because I look at countries like Ireland, like Greece, like Spain, that have struggled, and I don't know why that is, because I don't know. But I'd like to hear the argument of, well, it wouldn't happen to Scotland because we have this and this and this, and we are managed in this way that's different from this other way. Yeah. We were talking earlier about Scandinavian countries, and they seem to be doing really, really well. And could Scotland be managed? That's probably not the right word, but could they work along these kind of lines? I don't know. And I suppose I'd like to hear that kind of argument, that kind of the plan, like what is the plan? How would Scotland be able to grow? If I could be shown a model like Norway and how they have developed and what has helped them develop, and then give a comparison with Scotland and show that we could do the same. I mean, I understand Norway has high taxes, and it's very expensive to live there and for people to travel there. Would that happen in Scotland? Personally, that wouldn't put me off high taxes if it meant that we would, continue to prosper.
I mean, if you could see the money you were spending being used wisely, but for that you have to have a huge confidence in the government. You see, I just now don't have a lot of confidence in where our tax money is spent. I mean, to be honest, I don't. There's got to be an encouragement for small business, for people to want to set up in business, and for them to want to produce in their country and spend their taxes, and pay. A high tax society is not bad if you can see the results in your community, in the way you live, in your social services, in your schools, in your environment. So I think in these Scandinavian countries, the model of government must give the people confidence that although they pay high tax, they all seem to have a good standard of living. I think probably the average family bringing children up somewhere just wants a confidence in a good standard of living, a good education, a place that they can go and thrive, a place that their talented kids can stay because there's work for them and there's need for their talents to be there, and not, I think there's a bit of a brain drain in Scotland. I mean, I think I see a lot of university kids just heading off places with all their talents and their skills because there's nowhere for them to take them.
I hadn't even thought of that. I hadn't even thought of, if we became independent, I was just thinking SNP, I had not thought, you become independent and then of course any other party could come in. If people have voted for independence, I would assume that they would vote SNP in that first election. And then you would have to see how it works for the next 4 years, and if it's a disaster, then you would be looking elsewhere. Because when you mention Iceland, I think of it collapsing and everything going wrong. So that recovery process and how that could be, because I think people do have a fear of, Scotland, it couldn't work. But if you can give examples of how it has worked for other countries, then definitely.
Maybe these are the kind of models that should be in the press more, to give a balanced view then. Maybe these kind of models of small countries going it alone should be the kind of model out there that people are seeing. I mean, you've told us that there, but we wouldn't really have known. I don't think the average person's out there researching this. They're just taking what they're being told, really, the arguments that are out there.
What I would like is an example from another country, or a few examples from other countries, of how having a constitution has benefited that country, and how, if you're saying Iceland has used its own people to write that constitution, again, how has that happened? How do you get people involved in writing a constitution? Just the process, I suppose, and how it's worked for other countries, and then relating it back to Scotland.
Because again, this is so different for us. This is not anything that we've ever, as a people, been involved in writing a constitution. How would this be? I mean, I have heard bits of that on the news, but I haven't heard, I have heard that somewhere, I've heard that, but again, like you don't really know how that would work, and how countries who have written their own constitution have gone about doing that.
Yeah, I work in mental health, and I work in a directorate that's quite a small directorate, so it's different. I think we are very well staffed compared to some other areas of the NHS, and I'm part of an online forum, and certainly from what I hear from my colleagues down south is that their posts are being cut, posts aren't being replaced when people leave and that kind of thing, and I'm not finding that. Certainly within NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, it's working well. So I'm happy with the way the NHS is going. Certainly in my small directorate, I couldn't speak for the larger directorate, but it's a good place to be. I mean, we've not had a huge pay increase or anything. It was frozen for years, but I think that's understandable with the way the financial situation's been. So I don't have any huge complaints about that. I'd like them to continue to cut out the middle management and to put more staff on the ground. More staff that care about the patients, that are there hands-on to work with the patients, not that are out there to write policies and things are important, but you need the people on the ground to be working and to be caring for the people in the health service. However, it's not the health service, but what I've found is that because I'm working with people who are moving on from hospital, maybe been in hospital or prisons for a long time, they're moving out into the community, the services in the community are being cut. The resources that are there to support people are being cut over the last few years. So while people are very well cared for in the hospitals, they still need a huge amount of care to be able to sustain their mental well-being in the community, and if they don't get that support in the community, they're just going to end up back in hospital. So I think we still need a lot of investment from the voluntary sector in the community as well.
As you say, if the vote was tomorrow, I think yes, Scotland's going to lose a lot of votes of people who could have, if they were given more of a that seems a balanced argument, because maybe more clear arguments, more clear reasons why. More, and I think probably at this point in time people probably are up for change because things aren't great and people would like to see difference, you know, just for the kids and everything growing up in Scotland. But I think the arguments need to be clearer because it seems such a huge thing. I mean, our whole recent history has been joined. It just seems huge to be this wee country on its own. But if there was enough good argument to show us why and how that could work, you know, because this is a huge change, so it needs to be that these people, the people who for the Yes Scotland vote and in power at the moment, see a plan for Scotland moving forward, and we need a clear picture of what that, you know, and it takes in the NHS, it takes in defence, it takes in whether we're going to be in the EU or out, it takes in just family, small business, you know, children at university, every part of, and unless I think the families out there get that clear picture, it's going to be very hard to make that decision.
I think what we hear at the moment is a lot about blaming London, blaming that government all the time. It's, you know, we don't have enough financial control, we don't have enough power because it's London, London, London. And we know that, and I think what we need to hear is, okay, we know that, put it aside, this is what we will do, or this is how we will develop Scotland if we become independent. So, you know, stop. Politicians are terrible for blaming each other or anybody else but themselves, you know, so leave that to one side and tell us what you will do.
And tell us in a positive, we need a positive story. How is Scotland positively going to move forward? Not all that, we'll be better than that, and we'll be better than this, and we'll do this better than that. How are they, what is the positive steps they're going to take for Scotland in the next ongoing years?